So, drum roll please. The amount of money that I've spent on YouTube in 2020 is... Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Kajanan, and in this video I'm going to be talking about how much I've spent on YouTube gear in 2020 as a small channel with only 32 subscribers. Now, as I just mentioned, as of the day of this recording, I've only got 32 subscribers on my channel, and that's going to make the amount that I've spent seem quite comical. But I think this spending is justified, and that's something I'm going to talk more about at the end of this video. This style of video is something that I'm planning to do on an annual basis, and this is the 2020 edition. Now, just a quick heads up, everything that I talk about today will be discussed in AUD, and I'll leave a little tally up on the side here for US dollars because I know that's what everyone kind of uses as the reference standard. Additionally, you can find links to everything that I discuss in the description below, so be sure to check those out. Now, I want to start off by giving a massive shout out to Centrelink for sponsoring this video. For those of you who are not from Australia, you wouldn't know this, but Centrelink is a part of the Australian government that is responsible for a number of things, but one of those kind of parts of their jobs is giving out money to students who are over the age of 22. And this stipend is something called youth allowance. And it's kind of like a fortnightly income that we are given because we're doing full-time study, and so we might not necessarily have the time to work as well on the side. And this year I turned 22, so I was lucky enough to start receiving this stipend. And it's really as a result of this fortnightly income that I've been able to invest in this YouTube channel and, you know, purchase all the gear that I'm about to talk about. So I couldn't have done it without Centrelink, even though they're not officially sponsoring this video. They've indirectly been able to make all this possible by giving me the money that I have spent on this YouTube channel. And finally, I hope that this doesn't come across as some kind of weird flex or anything like that. I've been able to save up a reasonable amount of money, not just this year from Centrelink, but also in the past. And I've decided that rather than spending my money on things that I don't value as much, like gaming consoles or branded clothing, for example, I'm going to invest in something that I want to be spending my time on, which is making YouTube videos, and something that I'm actually really enjoying, and something that I think can also potentially become, you know, a future source of income. And so that's why I've spent this money on this YouTube channel. And as I'm sure you've already heard from any other YouTuber who's talked about their YouTube setup, you do not need any of this gear to get started, but I personally think it makes a big difference in making the video quality that you produce a lot better and more pleasing for others to watch, but also just for you to watch yourself. Because when I was getting started, I couldn't watch the videos that I was producing because they were just so ugly, and I felt that if I couldn't make videos of a high enough quality, then nobody else would want to watch them either, because if I myself would not want to watch them, why would anyone else want to? So I decided pretty early on that I was going to invest in good quality gear, and that's what this video is all about. So, drum roll please. The amount of money that I've spent on YouTube in 2020 is 7,652 Australian dollars. Was that more or less than what you expected? Let me know in the comments section down below. By the way, that's a dollar to subscriber ratio of $239.13 per subscriber. And half of those subscribers are my own family and friends, and they would have subscribed irrespective of whether I bought all this gear anyway. For those of you who are watching this and who have full-time jobs, this might not sound like a lot of money, but for me, a uni student who hasn't earned a single cent from YouTube and is still a long way off that, this is an insane investment. But in saying that, I don't actually regret most of my purchases at all. There are some that I do regret, but on the whole, I am really glad that I decided to take this YouTube thing seriously, and I'm really glad that I've decided to invest in something that I want to grow in the future. Now, before we actually get into what exactly I've spent my money on, I just thought I'd mention that timestamps to everything can be found in the description below and here as well. And you can find links to everything in the description below. And with that, let's get into seeing what exactly this $7,652 has gotten me. Okay, so starting with lighting. Initially, when I started this YouTube channel, I was just recording using the room lights and the lights on the roof, and they were making my videos look like absolute dog shit. So I decided that one of the first things that I would invest into was some decent lighting. So to start off, I got two lights. I got the Aperture AL F7 for $139 and the Aperture AL M9, which cost $58.50 at the time. To use this gear, I also had to buy some additional accessories. So I had to buy some light stands, which cost like $30, a specific screw to attach the light to the light stand, which cost $9, a battery and a charger for the larger light, which cost $50. And I thought I'd be able to get the same results using these two lights as I would from a large COB with a light dome attached. But boy was I mistaken. The lights were super harsh, and so to make them work, I would need to invest in a diffusion system. Now, I know that it's possible to scrape together a diffusion system, and it would be considerably cheaper than buying a new lighting setup, because all you'd have to do is buy a white umbrella or some shower curtain and some extra light stands to hang the curtain up. But the hassle of buying all these other different components and then have them occupy more space in the room was just something that I decided I didn't want to have to deal with. I didn't want to have 4 different light stands sitting around me in this small room, kind of restricting my movement in between videos and also making it more difficult to set up the lighting system for every new video that I wanted to record. And I'd be doing all this to get some pretty poor light, as the lights that I bought weren't actually that bright enough to use as key lights. And then there was the other issue that if I ever wanted to shoot a scene in a different room, I would have to migrate all this gear into the new room, shoot the scene, and then come back to my kind of usual setup studio, and that would make everything just a big hassle, and I didn't want to have to deal with that. So I made do for a while, actually using window light as my key light source, and then using the other lights that I bought just to kind of fill in. But the image that I was getting was still not as good as I really wanted for the videos that I was making. So I eventually decided that I would need to go one step further, and I went out and bought a big COB light and an associated light dome. So the one that I purchased was the Godox VL150, and that cost $642. And I also bought the Laufus parabolic softbox, 90 centimeters I think, and it was $249. And this really just increased the quality of my videos so much. You can see the disparity here. It's night and day. So I'm pretty happy with my lighting setup at the moment. I can't see myself needing to spend any more money on lighting equipment urgently. I would eventually like to get some Aperture MC kind of little pocket RGB lights that I can put around my desk to kind of make some different colors pop through, but that's not a necessity at this stage, and that's something for, a couple of months or years time. Next, we'll move on to audio. So I actually bought a Rode Video Micro last year when I was going overseas, and I decided that I wanted to vlog some of my time overseas. And that's what I'm using to currently record this video now. So it's not something that I've spent money on, this year for my YouTube setup specifically. And so I'm not going to include it in this final tally, but it is something that I have spent money on in general. However, what I realized soon after my first couple of videos was that having the mic mounted on the camera itself was really bad for getting good, clear quality audio. And I needed it to actually be much closer to my mouth to capture much nicer sounding audio. So what I ended up doing was buying this boom mic stand, which attaches the microphone, which is just sitting above me here, to the camera via this long cable that I also had to purchase. And then I also had to purchase some screws to attach the microphone to the boom pole. And this is a reasonable setup for now. And it cost me around $73 on top of the actual Rode Video Micro cost to set up, which is not too bad. Now in the future, I think I will look at purchasing a lav mic such as the 32-bit float recorder, the Zoom F2 field recorder, but that's again more of something that I would like, not necessarily something that I absolutely need at this stage. Alright, so next is the editing software and hardware side of things. I started off editing my first couple of videos in this software on Windows called VSDC, which I found to be absolutely heinous to use. I didn't like the interface. It was just really difficult to learn how to use. And so I decided that I would stop using that, and instead I would switch to Final Cut Pro, because at the time that was apparently the easiest software for editing videos, and also because Ali Abdaal had created a Skillshare course that I could watch for free and learn how to edit videos, better than what I currently knew how to. And so I used a free trial, a 90-day free trial, and I used my sister's MacBook Pro, and I edited off that for the next 3 months until my free trial ran out. When the free trial ran out, I decided to use DaVinci Resolve for one video, and then I realized that I didn't like DaVinci Resolve either. It was just too much effort to try and relearn a new system. Plus, it did not run at all well on my Windows laptop or my sister's MacBook Pro, and so I decided that I would stick with Final Cut, and so I paid the $300 for the Pro Apps bundle, I think it's called, which gives you Final Cut Pro, Logic, and some other applications, which is much cheaper than you could get Final Cut Pro alone. And I think Final Cut Pro is the perfect beginner editing software, so I'd highly recommend it for anyone who is interested. To make some more aesthetically pleasing titles and transitions and effects, I decided to purchase a plugin pack for Final Cut Pro off Video Hive for $67.50. Anyways, I continued like this for a while, editing off my sister's MacBook Pro and using the paid version of Final Cut Pro that I had bought. But I knew deep down that I would eventually need to buy my own MacBook because next year I'm moving to Tamworth, which is like 4 hours away from where I'm currently living in Newcastle. And so I wouldn't be able to use my sister's MacBook Pro next year. So I knew that I would need to buy my own. And I was just about to pull the trigger on one of the older 2020 May edition, I think, Intel MacBook Pros. And I would have to get like a reasonably spec'd up one to be able to edit videos on. So the one that I was looking at was like $2,800, which was just so much money for a computer at that time. The last laptop I bought was like $1,500, and it worked really well. So when it came to paying $2.8K, double that for a new MacBook laptop, I was pretty sad. And then thankfully Apple came out and released the new M1 MacBooks, and they were even faster than the old ones, and they were even cheaper than the old ones. And so what I did was I purchased a Mac Mini M1. It had 512 gigabytes of SSD and 16 gigs of unified memory, and I got that for $1639. So much cheaper than I would have if I had gone for the higher end MacBook from the Intel version. Because I had this saving, and because I had a desktop computer which doesn't have a monitor, I decided to also indulge myself a little bit more and spend some money on an ultra-wide monitor. So I bought this 34-inch Kogan ultra-wide monitor for like $511, and I also had to buy this mounting arm as well for, I think it was $80, and it wasn't something that I needed because I had another 24-inch, standard kind of monitor that I could have used, but I decided that I wanted to invest in my editing workflow and try and make it faster than it currently was. So I thought that having, more screen real estate in the horizontal plane would make that better, and also it'd just be a nicer experience because I spend most hours of the day sitting at my computer, and so if I can improve my productivity and the enjoyment that I have there, then it's going to pay itself off. So this Mac unfortunately doesn't come with an SD card reader, so I had to buy this Satechi USB hub for an extra $119. And then on top of that, I also decided to buy this software called Moom, which allows you to snap 3 side-by-side windows on your desktop screen, which allows you to, see more tabs at once. Because just using the normal Mac software, you can only see 2 side by side. And now that I had this ultra wide screen, I wanted to be able to have 3. So I paid $15 for that Moom software. Alright, so that's it for editing software / hardware. Now we'll move on to the subscriptions part of the video. So this is going to be really short because there's only 2 subscriptions that I have. One is for an Epidemic Sounds license, and this is something that is so valuable. I pay $204 and I get unlimited downloads of royalty-free music. And it's something that I think is almost essential for anyone who wants to take YouTube seriously. not necessarily from Epidemic Sounds, but any kind of royalty-free music licensing. And then the other one is for Storyblocks, which I pay $156 per year for. And this is for 4 HD video downloads per month. So I'm essentially paying $156 for 48 HD video downloads. In hindsight, I don't think I would buy the Storyblocks again. And I just forgot to mention the Epidemic Sounds is also per year, $204. And that's highly worth it. Storyblocks, not so much. I think stock footage isn't that important, especially the ones that you're kind of getting as part of this HD plan. They're not that versatile. So next is video equipment, which includes camera, lenses, tripods, etc. Firstly, everything for these videos has been shot using my Nikon D5600 with the attached 18 to 55mm kit lens. And this cost me $1,037 when I bought it at the beginning of last year. At the time, I also bought 2 additional lenses on top of my kit lens, an 11 to 20mm wide-angle zoom lens, and a 35mm prime lens for $702 and $273 respectively, because I was just starting to get into photography and I thought that I needed all the different types of gear to be able to shoot. With a camera, you also need batteries, SD cards, a carrying bag, tripods. So all up, those accessories cost me $441. Though I'm showing you the price so that you're more well informed about how much all of this gear costs, I'm not including any of this kind of camera gear in my final tally, because none of this I bought for YouTube. I all had it prior to starting a YouTube channel. There are a couple of things that I did buy specifically for YouTube. One was this DJI OM4 gimbal for smartphones, which I've made a video on, which you can find linked up here or over there. And it is something that I do regret buying because I don't think it's necessary for smartphone videography. And it cost me $239. Next was the DJI Mini 2 Fly More Combo drone bundle, and that cost me $891, including a 128GB SD card. And finally, though this isn't the only reason I bought it, one of the main reasons why I purchased an iPhone 12 this year was to help improve the video quality that I could make when I didn't have my cameras on me, but I still wanted to film some shots. So this is for a lot of the vlogs that I'm doing that are kind of med school oriented, because when I'm in a hospital and, you know, around the hospital, I can't carry a massive camera around. So I decided to get a reasonable quality phone to be able to, you know, take some shots, not of patients and that kind of thing, obviously, but just of like the hospital environment for vlogs that I wanted to do. And this iPhone 12 cost me $1,429. And then with the additional case and screen protector, that was an additional $100. Alright, so the final category is assorted devices and objects that I bought that for this YouTube channel that don't fit into any of the other categories too nicely. So for storage, I bought 2 things. Firstly, I bought a single Samsung T7 SSD with 1TB of storage for $269. And then the other thing that I bought was one Samsung T5 SSD with 2TB of storage for $329. Next is like documentation, I guess you could call it. And basically I've bought these 3 creative journals, which is just a pretentious way of calling these field notes journals, which I find are just a really nice way to write down my thoughts for any kind of creative ideas I have for YouTube videos or anything else related to my personal brand. And I bought 3 of these books for $23. And finally, I bought this little pot and the plant inside for like $30 from Bunnings Warehouse. And I thought it would make my desk setup look a little bit more aesthetic and, you know, just seem like a much more homely, cozy kind of place. And that's it. That's everything that I've spent money on for my YouTube channel in 2020. As I mentioned at the start of the video, this added up to a grand total of $7,652. As I mentioned before, I actually hadn't tallied up this number for the whole year until I came up to making this video. And when I did, you know, see that one number, it was so large that I died a little inside. It's just such an enormous amount of money. But as I said before, I don't feel bad for spending that much. Now, how do I justify spending $7,652 on my YouTube studio setup when I have so little to show for it, with only 32 subscribers and not a single cent earned from this YouTube channel? The way I see it is that YouTube is something that I really enjoy doing. And I'm not just saying this, it's actually something that I look forward to at the end of every day when I come back from uni, or when it's the weekend and I know I've got more time to think about making YouTube videos and kind of expressing my creative muscle, which is something that I don't really get to do on a day-to-day basis when I'm at the hospital. Making videos is not something that I'm just planning to do for the next 6 months or the next even 1 or 2 years. It's something that I want to do for the foreseeable future, 5 years and beyond. And because it's something that I am quite invested in and something that I enjoy so much, I figure that because it has potential to turn into, a side hustle, as they say, and earn some income on the side, it's something that I want to invest in so that later on I can reap the rewards. I think that by investing the money into this gear now, one, I'm not going to ever lose it because, all this gear should still work in 5 years' time and I shouldn't really need to upgrade a lot of it. And two, it should hopefully help me grow my channel faster than if I didn't have any of this, because, if I had dodgy looking lights, then nobody would want to watch my videos and it would take me a lot longer to kind of, be recommended and be watched by people. So I think that investing in all this gear is really valuable. And I think if you are in the same position where you're just starting out your YouTube career and, you do have the disposable money sitting there, I think it's a good idea to invest in your YouTube channel because, if you are serious about it, then treat this like you would any other business and, put the work in, but also invest your money in as well. And as I said at the beginning, if you don't have the money to do it, don't feel guilty, don't feel bad. So many people are doing way better than me and have spent a fraction of the price that I have. So it is 1,000,000% possible to do well without all this gear. But I personally just feel that I need it to kind of compete with these other people. Now, as I mentioned a few times throughout this video, there are some purchases that I regret making. However, I'm not going to talk about it in this particular video because it's dragged on for a while and I don't want to waste any more of your time. But I will make a future video where I talk about my version of a beginner YouTube setup. And in that video, I'll discuss what gear you should and you shouldn't invest in. And so hopefully I'll answer any questions that you have about that in that subsequent video. So be sure to subscribe to the channel to see when that video is released. One other thing, if you have liked this video, please drop it a like and subscribe to the channel because it means the world to me. It means that you can see any future videos that I make, and also it'll help me get closer to that 1,000 subscriber mark, which is kind of like this holy grail where at that point you can turn on your AdSense and start getting in the cents per video. And I really need to start getting some return on all this investment that I've made. So if you subscribe, you're helping me get closer to that mark, which will help me make even more high quality videos for you guys to watch. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.